It makes sense to me that Drew Barrymore is, or was, a scab, because she actually comes from a family of scabbers. Hi, I'm Freddie Mancia, historian of showbiz and politics, and early Hollywood is my specialty. And for this segment, we're first going to the year 1929, well after the motion picture industry had made its move from the East Coast to the West Coast. And with many of its members making the move to the West Coast for their piece of the movie industry pie, Actors Equity, the union for Broadway performers since 1919, felt they had jurisdiction over the working conditions of their members, essentially performing the same labor, even if it was in a different medium. However, Actors Equity had tried and failed to unionize Hollywood twice before. But in 1929, Actors Equity had regained encouragement because a few years earlier, the stagehands of Hollywood had managed to gain union protections through IATSE. And Equity was also encouraged by the fact that many of its members had newfound international clout because of their appearances in motion pictures, including the Barrymores. Actually, the entire Barrymore Drew clan was very much pro Actors Equity during the Broadway strikes of 1919, the effort that eventually led Broadway producers to agree to union demands. And the most prominent of Drew Barrymore's ancestors during the Broadway work stoppage of 1919 was actually her great aunt, Ethel Barrymore. Ethel Barrymore had actually positioned herself as the face of the labor force during the work stoppage, eventually getting voted into the role of vice president of Equity. But things were different in 1929 than they were in 1919.
Specifically, the amount of money.
By 1929, motion pictures had already become the top form of entertainment in the entire colonized world. And with the advent of movies with sound, Hollywood was definitely leaving its startup phase. And Hollywood studios and producers were very much interested in keeping as much profits as possible. But as they negotiated with the union, the elites of Hollywood's on-screen talent was very much leading the push against the labor union, with Lionel Barrymore, Drew Barrymore's great uncle, coming out as the first A-list Equity member to come out against the union, opening the floodgates for the rest of the A-list of Hollywood to come out against the efforts of Actors Equity as well. And Ethel Barrymore, who was still vice president of Equity, for her part, was publicly pro-union, but the things she was doing seemed to be meddling with a lot of the union efforts. Think of her as a sort of Joe Manchin of Equity. At least that's how I think Equity president Frank Gilmore would characterize her actions. Because when Actors Equity lost now this third time against the Hollywood studios, Gilmore threw Ethel Barrymore under the bus, saying that she was to blame for this third loss. But as a historiographer, I have to say, to me, it looks like Gilmore and Equity were just outmaneuvered this time. Now, for his part, John Barrymore, Drew Barrymore's grandfather, was pretty silent during the Hollywood strikes of 1929, and that's frankly because he was the movie star at the time, releasing film after film after film. To the public, John Barrymore was very much the face of Hollywood. But privately, he was battling with the pressures and vices that come with that level of exploitation. A sort of addiction to the attention, the money, the views, the likes, the applause. And like many in the Barrymore Drew family, John Barrymore would succumb. Here is John Barrymore the night before the opening of his final Broadway show, on the verge of another divorce, once again deep in debt, and still unable to stay sober. Barrymore found refuge in the one place where he found unconditional love throughout his life. The public eye. Eventually, in my opinion, losing everything, including himself, in the search for that love. So maybe it took some time, but I think Drew Barrymore eventually listening to her better judgment is a sign of her continuing to break familial curses. But it might have been too late.